Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to Conquering Chaos, a mom's guide to self-care and sanity. I'm your host, Sydney Crow, and today we have Lena. She is an Ontario-based leadership coach. She is a mom of three kids. She's been married for 18 years. She is originally from Ukraine, and her story is very powerful. She is a survivor of human trafficking and drug addiction. So welcome, Lena. So great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am very excited for the listeners to hear more about your story. You have such a big heart because you came onto this podcast and we've been chatting. The reason why you want to share your story is because you want to empower other survivors to not feel so alone. And I know that being a survivor has had such a huge impact on you being a mother. So why don't you tell the listeners your story and how that affects your motherhood?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, I would have never imagined that after 20 years of silence, I would be staying on stage in front of hundreds of people and my story would be broadcasted all over social media. Because in the past, I was afraid of judgment and rejection. I thought I have a story of guilt, shame, and condemnation. But now I know it's some story of salvation, of overcoming adversity and thriving after trauma. And I do want to share that to help others to give the hope that it is possible to have and love and joy and peace and wholeness again after trauma. So I was born in USSR and my country, uh, I was based in Ukraine, but that time, like we didn't have Ukraine. It was part of the Soviet Union. So when I was 11, Ukraine claimed independence, so the country started falling apart. And that's what actually added to the discord that was in my family, because now the work payments started being late, but they still charge the rent and the three kids. And honestly, now being a wife and a mother for 18 years, I do understand it was no easy job to actually take care of three children without hot water. Like literally, I have like goosebumps because I have so much compassion for my mother now because I do understand how hard is even like when you have wonderful relationship with your husband or when you still get a paycheck and have a food and diapers and formulas, because in that time not only both of them have to have a full-time job, then sometimes they didn't get paid, and then they didn't have food, then there was no hot water sometimes or electricity. So that was a huge stress. And of course, when the husband and wife not on the same page, it's actually like explode, you know. So I was 11 when it's all began, and I saw how fast my family life was deteriorating first between them, and then like it's ended in really awful divorce. But before that, they start looking for any means to cope, so they became like drinkers and alcoholics, and then they've lost their jobs, and our house become like really dirty and messy, and government turn off the electricity and hot water already permanently for outstanding bills. And my home was infested with black mold, cockroaches, and mice. And we struggle in poverty trying to survive. I was so hungry all the time. I was practically starving. So my home
Wow.
was full of strangers because they brought like booze and drugs, but they brought food as well. So that was an opportunity for me to eat. So I was hanging around. So I became an easy target for those guys from very early age, and no government protect like no government, no my parents protected me from what to come. I was abused and beaten and raped. And when I thought things couldn't get any worse, 1 month before my 15th birthday, I woke up with the extreme abdominal pain. And I ended up in hospital, scared and confused. They told me that I'm in labor. So I didn't know I
Wow.
was pregnant and I didn't know who her father was. And I had a baby, and she passed away 3 months later from health complications. But I wasn't even able to take her home because she had a birth defect, and they told me that she's not gonna survive. So I have to leave her at the hospital. But in order for the doctors to care for her, I had to give her I have to give her my last name, my name, and I have to sign the papers refusing parental rights.
Oh,
So, honestly, guys, in this wonderful country that I'm right now, the right
mm,
way would be police, social services. They would try to figure out what's going on, what's happening. There's was no one to supporting me through this trauma. So when I buried her, I was 15 years old. And I was already so broken and I've been drinking and smoking, but now on top of it, I have such a severe depression because I believe this baby's life was on my soul and conscious because I kind of submit to my fate, but I was responsible for her life and now death. So
mm,
I start looking for any anyway. It, you know what? I never really thought I gonna want to kill myself. But I thought if I don't wake up tomorrow, it's okay.
mm,
It like my life doesn't have no worth, no value in this time. So I start looking for drugs and end up on heroin for next 3 years because it was easy to be high than to feel abandoned and broken and hopeless and helpless. So then years went by, I didn't really pay attention. And then one day I have this huge awakening and I saw people dying around me or who went to jail. And some of my friends were getting shot.
my
And
gosh.
I woke up and I do believe, because I'm a woman of faith, I believe God spoke to me because I almost have this realization and I was so tired of this lifestyle and I want to get out, but there was no mm, hopes and dreams for people like me. But I
Mm,
heard God speaking to me saying, "You've been made for more."
oh,
And I almost like, drowning, started grabbing that straw. I'm like, what is more? What there is more to my life? And then I met this guy who told me about this lady who is like she had an opportunity and I have to meet her and that's what I'm looking for. So I was so excited. I'm like, whoa, something's happening, something's good happening to me. And she brought me to her house and she offered me fancy coffee and sweets. And she was so wealthy and she was kind and compassionate. And I was
yeah.
street junkie, like nobody treat me like a human for a very long time. So she offered me a job, no specifics, just a job. And I agree because I was, oh my goodness, maybe this is an opportunity. Somebody take a chance on me. So still, I'm on heavy drugs. I didn't remember the airport or how I got through customs. I'll never know. Just one morning, I woke up hearing Muslim call to prayer, Allahu Akbar, run out. So I realized I was in a foreign country. So it took me a while to figure out that this nice, rich-looking lady sold me into human trafficking. So
Wow.
yeah,
And you
and
knew
you,
right away.
yeah, no, you know what? It's so interesting that when this is happening, and actually, that's what I'm advocating now, right now, because like when we think about human trafficking, we think about that movie Taken,
Hmm.
when it's physical force, when it's so much discord, like screaming and this and that. most of the time people actually can be trafficked without even leaving the country. That's what happened to me, that they actually trafficked me out of my country. There people can be trafficked at home,
Yeah.
because mostly like it's involved family and friends. And look how these women actually play on their basic human needs
Yeah.
to be cared for, to be loved. They actually clean me, give me clean clothes. Like it's so basic. And I was like, okay, I'm yours. Do whatever you want, because alternative was for me death or
Mm.
jail. And actually, by default, because they took me out of my environment, I actually got withdrawals from heroin and I recover. And I always say, oh, this is my body. I was like, no, it's not my body. I do believe God had a purpose for me, because
Wow.
I should be like dead million times over. So
It's really powerful.
yeah, and then actually in the brothel in Israel, I met one of my bodyguard who shared the gospel with me, the good news of God's love, and that's what actually triggered me to get out from this situation. And honestly, guys, you will never leave this situation alive unless you have been rescued. By the grace of God, they let me go after almost like 2 years being there. And I came home because I thought I would start a new life, because I save up little bit money. But my other bodyguard stole all my possession, and my trustworthy aunt stole all my money. So I came to zero again, and I felt so betrayed, because those people, like, I have already like problem to trusting people. Was like closest people to my heart. And and honestly, I didn't know what to do, so I just went to bought my first dose, and I was on heroin again. And then I become right hand of number one drug dealer in my city, because then I had unlimited amount of drugs, unlimited amount of money, unlimited amount of influence. And I kid you not, in that moment, I felt like God speaking to me again, that you've been made for more. At that time, I was already using like dose of 5 people, so I could easy just kill myself just
Wow.
by overdose. So this time I didn't know what to do. So I get off from heroin again by myself. And second time I sold myself into trafficking willingly, because that's all I knew. And that was my ticket to get out from that city. This time they brought me to Canada. But here in Canada, first time I was like over like 20 years old, around 25, when I first time heard about human rights. I'm like, what do you mean human rights? What do you mean body is sacred? What do you mean they cannot do this?
Wow.
And I actually started going to school to learn English. And another thing that my traffickers, for all the girls that were coming in Canada, they start getting them into getting documents and stuff, because people been reported or deported before. So they want the investment to be protected. And I figure out I'm learning English, I have rights, and I have documents. So I just run away. I just took that chance thinking that if something happened, the police will protect me and government know that I'm here. Because what happened in Israel, I actually skipped that part. In Israel, when I was in Egypt, they forced us to crawl the border in Israel illegally. So I didn't have my documents when I was in Israel. So this time I'm thinking, wow, why it's happened to me and why I was able to actually run away, because they assume that I am slave and I'm broken, because at that point I would agree with everything, because that was my lot, I believed. And then something came as an opportunity, but they promised to kill me, kill my family, kill everything I touch. So for next 10 years, I had this huge fear of being recognized,
Wow.
and that brought another layer of the anxiety and like depressions and stuff like that. But another thing in this, what happened is that I was clean from drugs and I want so bad to start with this clean slate with people don't know who I am. And I had an opportunity to go to government credit cosmetology course, which is fantastic. They help newcomers to get a trade. And that's why I thought, like, I don't know how to do anything, so I need to figure out how to make money in a different way. So I finished 1 year course, and while I was at school, the government actually helped me to get like I was on welfare, I think like for 6 months, and then I got my first job. And trust me, I hated working for like minimum wage
Yeah.
and stay 8 hours and being abused by your superiors to clean and like it was terrible. It was the worst work that I ever had because I had thousands went through my hands like sand. And but I was so determined to get through. And then I finished my school. I got my hairstylist license. I was a hairstylist for almost 16 years. And then 2 of those years, I actually opened my own business because that was my dream. And I had my hair salon. But before that, when I went to school, I had like these huge plans for me because I assumed that if you get medals and trophies and recognition, then you're gonna be worthy. Your life is gonna be valuable because
Mm.
you are this human being that kind of what is like worthy to take up the space because like my identity like was broken. I had like
Yeah.
I didn't know who I was, and especially at least like there was like, oh, I know I'm alcoholic, prostitute, drug addict. That was my identity. And then there was the time then like I was not that anymore. So I'm going to school. I start learning driving. I went to Taekwondo school. I got my black belt, I'm going
Wow.
to competition. So like it's completely different life, but I still don't know who I am. I
Mm.
still have to figure out the rules of this land. I still have to figure out how you behave, how you dress, how you speak during the day, how
Mm.
you have the normal conversation with the peers or something like that. So in that time, all I was thinking, I'm gonna build my empire. I'm just gonna build the best health, the best wealth, the best myself. I'm gonna achieve. And literally every time I get where I want to be, like I was like so empty and nothing was like nothing was changing me internally. Yes, externally you can see that that was like huge change, but I still inside I was so lonely and rude and obnoxious. And after living that life, I couldn't connect with
Yeah.
anyone,
Yeah, you were just like seeking all of that validation outwards, right?
exactly.
But still
Um,
feeling empty on the inside, which is, yeah. So
Absolutely.
how did you switch out of that? Like, how did you meet your husband? How did you have like become a mom? Like all of it, I mean, you've been through an incredible journey, a lot of, ups and downs and human trafficking twice and drug addiction twice, and you were on this like vicious cycle. How did you break out of that?
Absolutely. Well, I did not plan on having any serious relationships. I was thinking me, myself, and I. And then I met this girl who at the hair salon when where I was doing the co-op, and she ended up being my first best friend.
Mm.
And it was so amazing that she loved me, like she loved me as a friend with all the crazy that I was, like with all this like loudness, obnoxiousness, and she just accepted me. And it
Hmm.
was such a beautiful friendship. And she started teaching me about some stuff, and she's just amazing human being. And one time when we were out, oh, and another thing about this amazing human being, like compared to me, she always wanted to have relationships. She always want to be a wife. She always want to have a kids. And I never told her who I am or who I was because
Okay.
now people see that new persona that I created. So
Yep.
I'm almost like acting this human.
Yep.
And I said to her, like, honestly, we haven't like living time of our lives. We are free. We have amazing work. We can go to this amazing place to play pool, to hang out. I love your company. Like, why? Like, what kind of like lame dreams is this? Husband, like they all cheat, they all lie. It's like mess.
Mm.
Why do we need this? Because my families fall apart. Everything that I saw in the brothel, seeing how the men coming to me right after they got married to their brides, like it's really breaks the belief in what marriage
Yeah,
really.
you didn't believe in the institution anymore.
Absolutely. And then, but you know what? It's funny though, because from all of my family, my grandparents been married for 52 years.
Wow.
And one time on their 40, I believe, anniversary, I saw like they being like so cute to each other, like and I'm like, that's kind of like really like not gross, like, but I'm like, it's the same person for like 40 years, like, and he
Mhm.
wasn't perfect either, like either of them wasn't perfect. And my grandma said, one day you will fall in love, and the day's gonna be flying so fast, and the months and the years. I'm like, yeah, yeah, okay. And then, so still, I was always pondering how the heck they live together for 52 years.
Yeah.
Like, it was something. And they didn't have faith. There was no God, like nothing. It was like straight up commitment to each other. And when both of them died, they died like 3 months apart because my grandpa was like heartbroken, and he's like, she's my soulmate. I'm not gonna
Oh,
live without her. So I'm like, wow, that was kind of image of the most true love that I ever saw. And somewhere deep inside, I was kind of like not envy, but longing for that,
okay.
because it's kind of like accepting you like with all the faults and still stick by you. But then I find this friend and it was kind of enough for me because up to this point, she's like, there's 20 years of like almost discord.
Yep.
So I kind of was like mocking her every time. And then one day in the same place when we hang out with her, I see this boy and we start talking and it was funny and he's like and cute and tall and handsome and all that stuff. But then we were leaving like our like he's saying is like a club or not the club, the bar, but it's not the bar. It was a little bit more fancy. People were in suit and tie and all this stuff.
Okay.
So he usually not come into places like that, but he was down the street with his bosses, and that's where they came. And was his first time, and we met. And then me and my friends were going into the car to go somewhere else. He literally squeezed into that car, and the people look at him and they're like, "Who is this?" And he goes, "I'm with her." And I said to them, "Well, I guess he's with me." So, so he was
Oh,
so bold, and I like that. And we hang out whole night, and it was fun. And he brought me home in a taxi. And I thought if he's gonna ask for my number, I give him my number. And it's funny that at my wedding, my friend Jenny, was my best girlfriend,
yeah.
goes, "Oh my gosh, when you met your husband, you fell in love with him like so fast and hard." But honestly, guys, in my head, I was at that time I didn't know God, but I said like if I ever fall in love, this is my list. And the list of my with like check marks what this person has to have,
Yeah,
it
all the
was just
qualities.
like impossible to reach. And it's been 18 years, me and my husband together. This year, it's gonna be 19 years. And I said to him, dude, like I would be an idiot to pass you by because you are above and beyond that list. And
Aw.
it's just like I'm way too smart for that. And it's been a journey, and he's not perfect, guys. Don't you think like, oh my gosh, he's like an angel in disguise and he saved her. No, trust me, he's not perfect and he has his own trauma, and we have to learn how to deal with ourselves and together. And we did tons of like therapy, counseling, and we still doing this, it's not like, oh, that was perfect marriage. And it's funny because just recently I said to him, wow, like you must be like loving me so much to go through all the crazy that I have to like learn for next 18 years. And he said, no, I probably love you 20. And the rest of it, I was committed. I was committed to marriage, and I was committed to our children, and I was committed to the union,
Yeah,
and it's so, or unit. And it was so interesting because I do believe that's what my parents or grandparents live in as well, because they were committed. And I do believe because he's man of faith too, he was committed too. And because there was like in his mind, he saw people getting divorced, he saw people like how the children being abandoned, and he's like, I'm not gonna leave my kids. And
yeah,
this is his core value for himself, you
yeah,
know. But when we met, we did for each other right away. I told him, you cannot sleep anywhere else, you cannot swear, you cannot beat me, you cannot drink, we cannot smoke in the house. I literally, that's everything that what I need. He's
yeah.
like, okay, sure. I'm like, I need like eating at the table. So we've been eating together with our kids for like since they were born. But it was easy for him because that's what his family did anyway. So he's like, sure,
Yeah.
sure. So most of this stuff, it was pretty pretty easy for him.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing when you can find a partner that like mirrors your core values, right? I mean, like you said, marriage is a choice every single day, and that's something that my husband and I say. Like, we have been together for 19 years as well this year,
Awesome.
married for going on 14 of those, I think. Yeah, 14 of those this year. But we grew up together, right? So there was a lot of things that we had to learn together. And I have faults and he has faults. And we've done countless rounds of therapy and counseling. And I mean, I think it's really important to have somebody that you can trust in your back pocket when things get a little bumpy, that you can go and work through with them. But marriage is a choice every single day. And like you said, neither one of us are perfect either, but we do the work, we put it in, and sometimes there's more love in the marriage, and sometimes it's more commitment in the marriage. And I think that that's a really powerful thing when you have been together with somebody for so long and gone through everything that you've gone through in your life, right? Like it is definitely, you are going to have bad days where those trauma, triggers flare up for you, right? And so being able to have somebody that can support you through that and understand that and still remain committed above all is a beautiful thing.
Okay, I have to tell you about this because there was no support for the trauma. And
Mm,
I was thinking, okay, so what happened is when when we were dating, I was like, oh, it's kind of like it's deflating and like it's temporary. But because the way he was treating me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want this in my life because I don't know how he saw in me who I can be rather than who I was.
mm,
And I do believe that's how God sees me too. He see who I becoming rather who I am at this moment and who I can be. But it's interesting though that when we were dating, I didn't tell him anything. I thought like it's temporary. But when we moved in together and I got pregnant and then he proposed, and I'm thinking, you know what? I want to tell you who I am because I didn't want him to feel that I didn't feel I was worthy of marriage or relationship. So I
Mm.
didn't want him to feel that I tricked him into this marriage or anything like that. So I wrote him 6-page letter
Oh.
and I give it to him, but he never read it. He said, "It's between you and God. I love you for who you are now." And it's funny because he says, like, now he said, "I don't remember that." I'm like, isn't that funny? I do believe God did this for me because I felt unworthy
Mm.
of these relationships. But now, like 18 years later, I'm thinking like I wish he could read it and I wish like he would make that choice, like, knowing who I am, because then if he would stay, he would support me through these years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was so proud and so scared to tell him later on because, like, then we have 3 kids, then we have businesses and homes. So it's getting more difficult and difficult. And I stay in the fact that I'm like, okay, he didn't want to know, and I have to honor that and I have to let it go. And I buried that. But the trauma doesn't stay buried. Trauma will
Mm.
like come up anytime. Oh, you're the bad mother, especially imposter syndrome. I should be like dead million time over. Some women like plan and dream about the children. Now, like 2 years ago, I was like in a brothel on drugs thinking I'm gonna die. Now I'm a wife and a mother and a housekeeper. And I was like, oh my gosh, like it was so hard. And plus, I was so alone. I didn't know how to drive. I didn't speak English like that well. I just finished my school. I got my license. And then I got like really overwhelmed with the hormones. I did had severe blood loss after delivering the baby. So
Wow.
and they discharged me without any health plan or any recovery plan. But I was a newcomer and his family live in US. So I was completely alone. There was no one advocating for me or my health.
Mm.
He was very young and he's like, okay, now I have a family, go to work. So he's like going to work, try to provide. But I think like coping with the fact like we just start hanging out and want to have fun and now we're pregnant and have home. Like so everything like was so fast and so hard. And I had a postpartum that I literally deal by myself. No doctor actually diagnosed me. And it's interesting. I had a postpartum twice. And you know how I find out? 10 years later, when I come out from it by myself through the TV. I
Oh,
was
wow.
listening to some like movie star and I'm thinking like what the heck is this? And she was talking about the problems like after having a baby. That time we didn't talk about trauma. We didn't talk about the postpartum. We didn't talk about all these changes that emotionally we have. And like honestly, I'm so grateful right now that everything is in the open. We're talking about the trauma and imposter syndrome and abuse because everything that was happening to us through our lifetime, it's imprinting on us and it's coming out sometimes in the random times. And for
Yeah.
me, it was like through anger. And he's like, "What? Your mother didn't teach you how to sweep the floor?" And instead of saying, "No, she didn't," because she's like, was like alcoholic, messed up, like, and she left the family and we were left to our own devices and stuff like that. I wouldn't say that. I would just lash out
Yeah.
because I thought he said, "You're a useless mother.
Yeah.
You're useless. You're not worthy." So I have to
Mm.
fight to be like worthy to keep me around. And then I was striving to like get the business, strive to this. Like it was so hard. And my husband would like say, "Why wouldn't you just be a stay-at-home mom?" And for me, it's like almost like alarm goes like, just do nothing. you to submit to him, like, because
Oh,
then you're gonna be nothing. It's like it took me so long to embrace the fact that he works so hard to take care of us, so I can just take time and take care
be
of
with the kids.
myself and the baby.
Yeah.
But nobody was talking about self-care either for
Yeah.
mother.
Yeah. I mean, it's so important. I mean, my kids are 10 and 8 now, and I went through, similar things where I felt so alone. Like I was so frustrated. I was not like I joke a little bit because I say, I got to a point where I wanted a refund on adulting. And I was like, this isn't what I signed up for. Like, let's go. And, I honestly, it was more out of fear than anything because I thought that if I had actually gone to my doctor or my husband or, or anybody in my support system and actually told them what I was thinking, that they would take my kids away, that they would be like, oh, she's not a fit mother. She's like, so I think it's super important to bring these conversations to the forefront so that moms feel more empowered to speak their truth and really get the support that they need, whether that is going to their doctor and potentially needing a pharmaceutical or finding holistic solutions, which has been the real game changer for myself.
Mm.
Not having to pop pills every day, being able to find ways to holistically support my health and my nutrition and my mental wellness, because that's where things can really pivot, right? When you have a clearer head and a clearer mind and more patience at the end of the day than, your kids have used up, that's where the real transformation starts to happen because you're not feeling just so depleted from the second you open your eyes in the morning. Like there were days where I'd open my eyes and just be like, don't want to do it. Like I'm just going to roll over and hide under my covers and hope the kids just stay asleep. Like
I
we're just
literally
going
have
to,
like, sorry to interrupt you, I have days that I don't remember. Like
yeah,
literally, I don't remember like days, weeks. I just was doing stuff on autopilot. And you brought up the holistic approach. Yes, you know what, ladies? Ask for help. Ask to go sleep. Ask to take care of your baby or the kids so you can shower. Trust
yeah,
me, like we all think like, oh, maybe I need like days at the spa. Trust me, when you have kids and you bathe and you brush your teeth and you blow dry your hair, you're gonna feel like $1,000,000.
yeah,
And it starts with just sleep, eat, exercise. If you can nail that, it took me like honestly, I don't know, probably I told my husband last fall. So it was like almost like what, 17, 16 years when I said to him, I feel like myself. I'm finally feel like myself, like all my hormones kind of like stabilize, my mental health, my physical health. But through all those times, I was looking for something and I was, oh, if I go sleep earlier, that means I can wake up and I feel a little bit more refreshed, or I can eat better because when I had my twins, so like first I have a baby, then I have two babies at once. So I'm like, okay, so now like challenge after challenge. And my husband would call and he's like, did you eat? And I say, yes, because I literally sometimes forget to eat. And then I eat so much that I want to throw up. And so he started checking on me. I say, yes. And he said, what was it? I say, I don't know. It was cold. It wasn't good. And it was dripping. And yeah, like I did not enjoy it. I think this part is so important. We always think, oh, like my kids like have like an amazing schedule and they eat like organic food and all
yeah,
that stuff. And I always thought I have to do this for them. I have to do this for them. And this is the biggest lie, ladies, we can believe that to taking care of ourselves, it's not doing it for them.
yeah,
Because honestly, when you taking care of yourself, you can show up differently. You can love them in a different way. It's not like you don't love them, but you can be more for them and take care of them and be patient and be kind, all of these things that you are. But you cannot give like when you're empty. And it's
yeah,
so important, especially for like brand new moms, we have this amazing, I don't know, thing in our hearts to serve this baby.
yeah.
But like you have to remember just taking care of yourself is as important for that baby as you feeding that baby. So
Totally.
ask for help, and nobody gonna think you're weak. People wanna help you. You just need to reach out and say, you know what, I need help. People can bring you food, like, and honestly tell them what you need. Now, like on the second, when I got my twins and I already was part of the church, people were asking like, what do you need? And before I was like, oh, I have to do everything myself, like I'm
Yeah.
rushing, I can take care of it, like I'll do it. And then I was falling apart. I'm like, I cannot do it. And I'm like, I need food. And they just stuck out my fridge, and I was
Oh,
eating somebody's food, and I'm thinking, this is amazing. I
yeah.
have no time, no energy to cook this, but people gonna love you. You just need to humble yourself, and it's not like make you weak in any shape or form. People want to help you. Just
Yeah.
let them.
100%. And I think that's the biggest thing is like there's this stigma around women where we have to be, do, and have it all, right? We can have the career and we can have the kids and we have to have the perfect home and we have to do all of these things. And I don't know where this came from or why this is still sticking around. I mean, it's 2024 and we all put the same pressure. I've talked to countless moms and every single one of them has the same complex where it's like a sign of weakness if we ask for help, or it's a sign of like being a bad mother if we can't do the things that, Sally down the street was able to do. But we don't know how much help or support that Sally down the street has. I mean, I was also talking to one of my colleagues who lives in South America, and she was saying that in South America, it's actually strange if you don't have a nanny. So
Mm,
in a different culture where you have, maybe you have the career and you do all of these things, but a lot of them are still stay-at-home moms and they still have a nanny, right? I know it's the same in Dominican Republic where you have women that, are going to work, and I'll say that in the more like affluent towns, but it's you're a mom, but you still have all of this support. And here in North America, it's like, oh, well, aren't you a stay-at-home mom? Oh, you need a nanny for that? Oh, you need this, like
yeah.
all of these things. And there's this stigma around it. And it's like, no, it just takes a village to raise a kid. It doesn't matter where they're raised, it still takes the
Mm,
village. And so, ask for the help so that you can get the shower and you can have the meals and you can do all of the things because at the end of the day, like you said, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not showing up as the best mom for your kids. And it's
absolutely.
it's a really powerful thing to be able to humble yourself enough to actually ask for the things that you need. And so I think that's a really important lesson that you've been able to teach the listeners. Is there any last piece of advice that you'd like to share with the women or the listeners out there?
Yes, absolutely. Because I was thinking my trauma so was impacting and my marriage and my relationship. And you know why? Because it was a secret for 20 years. And
Mm.
then God led me to actually write my spiritual autobiography. And I'm telling you guys, this one changed my life because you need to speak into the darkness, into these
Mm.
secrets. And sometimes I'm not telling you like to write a book and go on podcast and TV, but write everything. Like if something triggers you that you have really bad behavior around, for example, like anger, resentment, or something triggers you, look into it. It's trauma. It's some childhood or like some trauma lingering around. Maybe you know about it, maybe you don't know. If you don't have a therapist, if you don't have anyone to share with, write this down. I do believe that journaling and just taking this out of yourself, it's gonna help you actually see, especially like from the new perspective, where are you now? Because this is all trauma, all past, it just linger, and so you have to deal with that no matter how. It's not gonna disappear, it's not gonna heal. And actually one of my friends saying this phrase that I think like I gonna borrow it. She said, you have to feel it to heal it. So you have to
Mm.
go through it no matter how. You cannot pretend that it's not there. You cannot camouflage. Maybe for a time because I thought like I give my life to Christ, all my sins are forgiven and I live in freedom, and I am. But something happened and it derails me and I'm on my knees again. I'm like, why this is happening? And I have to
Mm,
look, and then there's like such a darkness. Of course, it have to be dealt with. So writing a journal, and then, if you actually do need help, professional help, or somebody in your family, your friends, just choose that person wisely and
mm,
trust them to share, or give them that journal, because sometimes shame actually does not allow us to speak, because I know lots of survivors like hiding it because it's so hard to actually tell the people about the past. So give them that journal, but
mm,
if you really need help, if you need to look into like some professionals, and like there's so many things are available to you. You are not alone. This is not happening to you only. That's a crazy lie that I was believing, that people gonna
mm,
stone me, shame me for who I am. But I kid you not, guys, I've been speaking and sharing my story for more than 3 years, and all I have is love. People just so kind and so compassionate. You know why? Because we all have trauma. Maybe like you never been like abused, raped, and on drugs and alcoholic, but you know what? Do you know that neglect, it's still gonna affect you negatively? Like
yeah.
if your parents like was busy parents and working, so you still have that pain. So when people have pain, they understand pain. So do not
Mm,
hide. You are not alone. You are loved. You are significant, and your life is valuable. And one day, like, just have hope. Everything's gonna change, and everything happened for a reason, and it's gonna help you become a better person. All your pain have purpose, and that's what I'm grateful for today, because honestly, it built my character, it built my identity, it built my like empath and purpose. Everything comes from that pain. So
mm.
that's what I want to share.
Well, thank you so much, Lena. What a beautiful message. And thank you for being here to help empower other survivors and just other moms in general to help make them feel less alone. Your story is beautiful, and I'm so excited that you were able to come on and share with us today. Thank you for tuning into today's episode where we help you conquer the chaos one day at a time.